Hey, when was the last time a bill for technical debt came due for you? Well, I just had an experience this week I want to share with you, so stick around. Hello, and welcome to another episode of CISO Tradecraft, the podcast that provides you with the information, knowledge, and wisdom to be a more effective cybersecurity leader. My name is G. Mark Hardy, and I got a couple things I want to share with you today. First of all, of course, we're going to be talking about technical debt. I kind of alluded to that, but I also just got back from the RSAC 2025 conference. Now, I'm told that it's not the RSA conference. They had a change of ownership, change of name, and so that's the correct name for it. But for those of you who are out there, and if I had a chance to say hello, that's great. I was able to attend as a content creator, and they give you a nice little badge here. And I thought, hey, this is great. I went through the book. I figured out all the different talks I want to go to. I was going to write them up and give you a report. And then I find out that as a content creator, you can't get to go to any of the talks, but you can go to see the vendors. So I did get to see Gnostic. These guys were on our show this past week with Sunil Yu. Anyway, the other big reason that I couldn't really give you much of a report from RSA is I had to come back early. And it is a personal story, and it has to do with my little dog, Shelby. Now, if you've ever seen my podcast over the last 4.5 years, you know that my little dog, this little Pomeranian, usually spends her time right here on my desk, which is where she is right now, trying to take a nap while I go ahead and knock this thing out. For those of you who are watching YouTube, you can see her here. You can also see that her belly has been shaved, and I'm not going to turn her all the way over because it'd make her uncomfortable. But she's got about a 4-inch incision in her. And let me tell you the story about how that happened and why, and maybe how that could relate to your job in cybersecurity. Learned a little bit about putting off things, and that's why I said this is going to be about technical debt. So let's talk about technical debt. In the cybersecurity world, it's technical debt's accumulation of compromises, shortcuts, outdated practices that we tolerate in our systems or process or infrastructure. It's, we'll fix this later. We'll get around to it mentality, whether it's outdated software, skipping patches, delaying implementation of security controls that are more robust than what we've got. It's not always intentional. Sometimes we have budget constraints. We can't get around that. We got tight deadlines. Something's got to get out the door. Sometimes we just don't know any better. But here's the kicker. Technical debt doesn't just sit there. It compounds. All right. It gets worse. It's like interest on a bad loan. It increases your risk, it increases your complexity, and potentially increases your cost over time. Now, because it's risk, what is risk? Risk is measurable uncertainty. And you don't know if something is going to go bad or not. But when it does, it could go a whole lot worse. So, well, first of all, who's responsible for technical debt? It's kind of a shared burden. I mean, leadership might prioritize speed over security. Developers might cut corners to meet their deadlines. Your IT teams might struggle to keep up with the pace of the change. But the consequences are pretty much universal. Technical debt could lead to vulnerabilities that can either be attackers can exploit, system failures could occur that could disrupt your operations. It could result in compliance failures. It could cost you a lot of money. Long-term, it also erodes trust. It slows down your innovation, and it's going to drain your resources that you scramble to clean up the messes that could have been prevented. Now, I could throw statistics at you and did a little bit of checking around. And it turns out, though, that organizations with high technical debt end up spending about 50% more on IT remediation. It's like a credit card where you buy something you can't afford, and it's a 29.99% interest or whatever the maximum they can charge on you, and it builds up over time. And so as a result, that for some people is real, but we say, yeah, well, I don't run things up on credit cards. That's not real. Well, let's make this technical debt real. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Shelby, my 5-year-old Pomeranian, and how her little story can mirror the dangers of technical debt in a way that hit really close to home for me. So here she is, as I said, sitting here at my desk, been my best friend for 5.5 years and been healthy her whole life. Have had no vet bills other than taking her to get her rabies shot every 3 years and been a constant companion, whether I'm working late like I am now or out for morning walks or just hanging around on my desk during the podcast. But never planned to breed her, and since she wasn't around any other dogs that would be potentially mateable, she didn't see the need to spare. It seemed kind of unnecessary, and why cut her up when she's doing just fine? And yeah, I was told it might have a higher risk of things like a breast cancer, but that's kind of remote. Like a vulnerability exists, but you don't prioritize it. And so that's my first mistake, a little piece of technical debt in Shelby's care. Getting the dog spayed, I don't know what it costs, $99, not terribly expensive. It's pretty routine. Now, fast forward to March of this year. So she went through her heat cycle, I guess it twice a year, and this ended around the 1st of April. It seemed kind of normal. Walks around and she kind of pushes her butt up against you and is like, hey, what's going on? But something was off. She didn't bleed much at the end of her cycle. Sorry if I'm getting into detail here, but it's typical at the end of a dog's heat cycle. And hindsight, that was like a loss of telemetry, a signal that we didn't have the tools or the knowledge to interpret. Now, in cybersecurity, it's like losing visibility in your network logs or dismissing an anomaly doesn't fit the pattern. You just go, well, okay, fine. Maybe it's a little bit easier. I'm not going to have to make much of a cleanup. But over the next couple of weeks, she started acting a little bit more differently. She's less playful, kind of withdrawn. And I chalk it up to her cycle ending, like when you attribute a system slowdown, maybe to, you get normal traffic spikes. And then the symptoms got a little bit worse. She stopped wanting to eat. Her abdomen started to swell up a little bit. And I try to pick her up. She makes a little moaning sound. And these are red flags, but I kind of misattributed them because maybe she ate something bad. We thought she'd gone out there and grabbed something out of the lawn after they had put the little granules on it or something like that to kill the bugs. Maybe she's just tired. I did a Google search on her symptoms. Nothing really jumped out as urgent, but I didn't include a key element in my symptom search, and that was an unspayed female dog. Because it's kind of like running a basic vulnerability scan. You kind of assume everything's fine because the report didn't scream critical, so you just keep on going. So this past week, I went to RSA. Headed out on Monday. Dog was kind of not feeling so well. And then here I am now 3 time zones away, and I get a call from home saying your dog's really seriously ill. And that call didn't go through right away because it's time zone difference. I've got my Google phone, and when I set it down, face down, it goes into sleep mode, doesn't ring. And so that's a decision maker unavailable moment. Never had that happen. When I go ahead and I do the exercises and tabletops, I'll always include something in there like your key decision makers on a plane, you can't reach her. What do you do? Well, we don't have a designated alternative. Well, that's a good learning moment. And so you need to have a decision maker who's number 2. Like a CISO or a CIO or whomever, when you're on vacation or, as you say, on a plane when the breach hits, and nobody knows who's authorized to act. And so at home, call from home, unsure what to do. Said, yeah, let's wait 3 days until you get back. You ought to come home right away. And that was another mistake, more debt piling up. And thankfully, my wife gave a call to the vet's receptionist who mentioned a condition called pyometra. I'd never heard of it before. It's a life-threatening infection of the uterus. It can strike an unspayed dog and basically, drain out, all fills up and it infects, and it can eventually burst and kill the dog. And I thought this is like a non-expert diagnosis moment. It's the receptionist. It's like when a junior analyst will flag a potential issue, but doesn't have the authority to escalate. I did a quick Google search on this pyometra, and wow, it was kind of scary. The symptoms match perfectly. Lethargy, abdominal swelling, loss of appetite, rapid breathing. It's a ticking time bomb because it will kill your dog, and only in a few days. And this is already a few days that already passed since the symptoms started. So I called back home and I said, take her to the vet now, today. Well, I had the car because, I was at the airport. I was going to be right back. So get an Uber. Yeah, which he did, thank goodness. And the vet got there and confirmed the diagnosis, did emergency surgery right then and there. He said that if you waited 12 more hours, you wouldn't have a dog. Now, they removed 2.5 pounds from my 11-pound dog. It's kind of interesting, but gross in a way, so I'm not going to put on the podcast, but I could put a link to it in the show notes if anybody wants to see what that looks like. And that's nearly a quarter of her body weight. Now, imagine that if you had to shut down a quarter of all your systems and you couldn't depend on them anymore. Now, she's recovering right now. It's been a few days. I'm sleeping on the floor with her so she doesn't have to jump up and down. It was a really close call. And one we could have avoided if I had addressed this technical debt of not spaying her years ago, even though I didn't think it needed it. So what does this story about my little dog teach us about technical debt? First, small decisions can compound. Not spaying her at the time seemed like a low-risk choice, just like skipping a software update or delaying a security audit. But these choices build up, and they can create bigger risks you don't see until it's too late. Secondly, if you lose telemetry, that's a warning sign. Her lack of bleeding was a signal I missed because we didn't have the context to interpret it. In cybersecurity, this is not like having real-time monitoring or dismissing anomalies because they don't fit your mental model. Invest in visibility. Get a SIEM or a endpoint detection system so you're not flying blind. And then misattribution delays action. We thought our symptoms were due to something benign, like how you might blame a data breach initially on user error instead of a deeper vulnerability. And root cause analysis is critical. Don't just stop at the surface. And then fourth, accessibility matters. Now, my partner couldn't reach me, and initially I suggested that, okay, I'll come home. And then once I got the information of what this thing was and how bad it could be, it's like, yeah, we need to go ahead and do something. Now, initially, as a decision maker, I didn't know enough about what the problem was, and I didn't assign a high enough urgency to it. But if your decision makers are either unavailable or you got bureaucratic processes, it's really hard to get there. Got to get through all that friction, and that could take a manageable event into a crisis. Also ensure that your decision makers are willing to take the time to invest to figure out what's the right thing to do. Because once they got online and started Google checking and things like that and reading about the symptoms, it's like, yeah, this is a serious problem. Don't wait at all. And then finally, non-experts can also raise an alarm. That receptionist at the vet saved Shelby's life by suggesting that the cause of her symptoms wasn't something she ate or something that whatever is mishandling, but pyometra. In your organization, be willing to listen to your junior analyst, the help desk tech, or even the end user says, something's not quite right. They might not have the full picture, but they might be the first one to spot some trouble. So Shelby's surgery was our emergency remediation. Okay, it's a costly, high-stakes fix for a problem we could have prevented. $2,800 for the surgeon's bill and about another $1,100 when you throw in everything else. And so when you think about those expenses, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit like calling your incident response, and their bill starts the minute they hang up the phone. And these incident responders are not cheap. Plus, you got to usually put them up in a hotel and take care of lodging and travel and meals and everything else like that. Plus, your overtime for your people if you're going to have something like that, and it adds up. It gets very expensive. In cybersecurity, it's like paying millions to recover from a ransomware vulnerability that you could have patched because it was a known vulnerability, but you just didn't do it because you're putting things off, or it just looked too difficult, or we didn't want to disrupt the business function. So technical debt isn't a technical issue alone. It's a business risk. It's a difference between proactive investment and reactive panic. So what can you do? Start by assessing your technical debt. Audit your systems, prioritize your critical updates, and invest in training so your team can spot the pyometra in your environment. Build a culture where security is everyone's responsibility, not just the IT teams. And most importantly, act now. Don't wait for the equivalent of a 2.5-pound infection to force your hand. Okay, well, I want to thank you for those who've seen my little dog on the show from time to time. Thank you for putting up with her. She's pretty good and doesn't bark. I took her out for a walk today, and she did okay. I didn't chase any squirrels, but you could tell that she wanted to. But I hope that the story sticks with you, not just the tale of a dog who got ill and almost died, but as a wake-up call. You need to tackle your technical debt before it becomes a crisis. If you got stories of your own on your pets or cybersecurity, drop us a note on LinkedIn and let us know, or contact with me directly. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much for listening in. It's a rather short episode, but I've been kind of busy this week, distracted. So thank you very much for listening to and watching to CISO Tradecraft. This is your host, Hugh Mark Hardy, and until next time, stay safe out there.